Hello, tea family. First stop. If you've never tried pear in a tea blend, you're absolutely positively missing out. So tonight we're going to be talking about Starlight Pear, which smells like a summer orchard but tastes like a wonderful green tea. And it is not your normal pear tea for winter because most people don't drink pear in the winter tea very much. Not enough people understand what pear does in a hot tea. It's sweet and bright and juicy without adding any sugar to it. And I'm going to show you why this blend has our tea family so excited. So, anything. Okay. So I want to say welcome. My handy dandy assistant completely threw me off with that one when he posted the comment. It distracted me. But please say hello. Let me know that you're here. Let me know what you're drinking in your cup tonight. We're going to be talking and enjoying some Starlight Pear. And that is a blend that is only available January through March. So welcome to Stephanie. Stephanie, let us know what you're drinking. And one of the things that's really fun about this one is pear is actually rarely used in tea blends. Because it has such an incredibly delicate flavor, it really is hard to not overpower it. Most companies just go to relying on artificial pear flavoring because the real fruit is such a subtle flavor. But of course, since we don't do any artificial or natural flavorings, we only use real organic non-GMO ingredients. We decided that the best way to really pack a punch and get that full pear flavor, regardless of how delicate it is, was to go with freeze drying. It also keeps it shelf stable in the tea packets for a lot longer. And when we did, it changes everything. So it allows the pears to hold on to their natural sugars, their aroma, and it tastes like little pieces of pear that rehydrate the minute the hot water hits them. Let's see. Stephanie's drinking Onyx chai this evening. I'm not surprised about that. And Diane is drinking Starlight Pear. Perfect timing, Diane. I love it. So I wanted to kind of talk about that. And one of the reasons why we talk so much about freeze-dried fruit, I do want to clarify, freeze-dried fruit is not dried per se. It's actually been preserved at negative 40 degrees Fahrenheit. And that causes the water to completely evaporate and locks in the nutrition and the flavors, and it keeps it shelf stable as long as it doesn't come in contact with heat or with the water or humidity or anything like that. But that's why freeze-dried pear tastes so much more like a fresh piece of pear. It's kind of fun that way. All right, now, and then hello to Kim. Let's see, finishing some White Friday special. That's awesome, Kim. That's another good one. All right, so what we have for Starlight tea, put that up there, is some green tea. That's going to carry the structure of the tea, bring us a clean, crisp, slightly grassy note to it. The freeze-dried pear is going to add natural sweetness and the kind of perfume of the tea blend. And then the apple is going to round out the blend so it tastes full and not thin. Those freeze-dried apples are going to help boost the natural sweetness without adding any sugar. And it is one of the ones that is delightful, even if it is brewed cold or as an iced tea. The other thing is the apple is very subtle. It's not going to overwhelm the pear because, again, we talked about how delicate the pear is. So let's see. Unusual fact, freeze-dried pears actually get sweeter. Here, look at that again. You can see all the pear in there. They actually get sweeter the moment they touch the hot water because they release a tiny flavor compound called esters that mimic a fresh cut pear. So there you go. One of the questions we often get with this one is what happens if you oversteep. So let's go ahead and we're going to brew some. I have water here. It is a green tea. So we're running, I don't know, about 175. You could go to 180 definitely don't want it boiling. And then we just have our 2.5 grams here. Now that's going to be more of a rounded teaspoon because the freeze-dried fruit is high in volume but light in weight, so looks like a lot more. And then we're just going to pour this in. And if I could get 2 minutes on the clock, please, from my handy dandy assistant, that would be great. Now, 2 minutes on the clock. That is because the first minute is really going to hydrate the pears, and the second minute is not going to overdo on the green tea because it's only 175 degrees. But that is going to allow it to really bring out all the flavors. Now, what happens if you oversteep this tea? Well, it smells so good. You're going to lose some of the pear sweetness in the tea blend. And if you either really oversteep it, like you forgot it's there, or you have your water too hot, that can make the green tea taste very bitter. But brewed just right, Starlight Pear is a very soft sip of fruitiness without being overdone. So there you go. That's how I would say. I can't wait for this one. This one's like I'm anxious to be able to drink this one. 54 seconds. That's a really long time to have to wait. So again, if you have any questions or comments tonight, just go ahead and put them in the chat or the comments. And I would love to answer any of them, especially if we're just talking about the Starlight Pear. I kind of jumped into it a little bit different tonight and gave you kind of some of the reasons why I like this so much. And it is a very popular tea blend for these winter months. One of the reasons why we went there is we really wanted to have something lighter and a fruity note to it, but we wanted it to be unusual. And like I said, pear is especially natural pear, is extraordinarily unusual in tea blends, especially hot tea blends. So we should be approaching right around 2 minutes if the timer in my brain is about right. There it is. And here's my 2-minute mark. Okay. So you can still brew this 3 times. That is not a problem. And we're going to see. Hopefully you'll be able to see how light that is inside. If somebody could let me know if you can see, it is just a slight green color. And I get the first note of the green tea, but then I get the sweetness. And there, just a burst of flavor on your tongue. Man, that is so good. Really, really nice. It's a very light tea. This is definitely not something that's going to be heavy. I always think of a black tea as being heavier. Definitely not as heavy as a chai tea. Very light, very delicate. And so perfect for when you want something a little bit different. So let's talk about tea pairings. First of all, we're going to go with some more traditional things to talk about. A pear and brie flatbread. The tea's sweetness is going to balance against the cream cheese in that kind of a sandwich or that kind of a setup. Surprisingly enough, apple cinnamon scones. This is going to bring out some of the apple notes, but that will also not overpower the delicate nature of the tea. So that's kind of a more traditional. Again, when you think of green teas, a lot of people think lighter dishes. So you get like a chicken salad and grapes and almonds or that sort of thing, or even just those kinds of light, refreshing foods that are going to kind of mirror the crispness of the tea. Let's see. Another one would be a spinach and strawberry salad. The tea is going to really make the strawberries taste brighter, especially if you add, especially balanced against the spinach. And here's a pro tip. Add in some Thai basil leaves. They're going to have a slight licorice anise kind of a flavor. And it will work because those notes in that Thai basil, they're going to be really bringing out a very sophisticated spicy depth in the pear flavor, and it will stay hidden normally, but then the strawberries are going to double down on some of the fruity notes to kind of balance about the bite. So there's one that's kind of a traditional, a strawberry and spinach salad, but add in those Thai basil leaves. I promise you will really enjoy the flavor difference in that one. So then you could go with a traditional savory crunch prosciutto and parmesan shreds if you're doing like a charcuterie. Uh, this is, sorry, I had flashbacks to when we did the little mini charcuterie and I kept trying to say charcuterie. So that's why I giggled in myself while I was going through this. So the Parmesan shards and prosciutto, this is going to definitely be the traditional salty versus sweet play all in one place. You're going to have the saltiness of the cured meats and the saltiness of kind of the Parmesan, that bite of the Parmesan, and it'll really make a nice way for the pear to pop. Also the green tea always acts as a palate cleanser, so that's a really good way to get rid of some of the kind of the fat of it too. Something that might be a little more unexpected is a rosemary shortbread. Herbs aren't just savory dish only. A buttery shortbread or shortbread cookie infused with fresh rosemary especially is going to really pair incredibly well with a fruit forward tea like this one where we have two of the fruits together. Rosemary especially has that piney, woodsy aroma, and it's going to make the Starlight Pear feel more like a walk through the winter woods where you're kind of enjoying that sweetness. You have kind of the crispness and the piney notes, and that's why I wanted to talk about that one. Now, if we're going to go in the opposite direction a little bit, but still pretty traditional, we're going to do what I'm going to call the floral funk of your blue cheese and honey on a good crusty sourdough bread. A blue cheese like a gorgonzola or roquefort, they have a real natural affinity for the pears. So the contrast is really going to make that pear pop again. And that's one of those wonderful things that can happen when you pair the correct food and fruit together or tea together, because you're going to notice more of that delicate flavor really come out without having to add in a bunch of man-made chemicals to make it happen. So now let's move into the little bit of unusual. I don't always just want to go with the traditionals. They're great and that's a great place to start, but be creative. And sometimes you'll find some great flavor combinations that you just never thought of. Like last week, we talked about the salt and vinegar chips and the Winter's Kiss tea. So a little unusual, but absolutely spot on would be a miso glazed walnut or pecan. So roast some of the pecans, a little touch of a white miso paste, and then add in a hint of maple syrup for sweetness. So this is a very umami bomb flavor. You're gonna have the savoriness of that fermented flavor of the miso, and it's really going to perfectly pair with the grassy notes of the green tea, while the notes are going to provide that crunch, and it's going to mixture the texture of a freeze dried apple, or biting into the apple or biting into a fresh pear, and going to kind of give you both texture as well as flavor combinations that'll bring out that. If you're not wanting to move into kind of the Asian realm of things, you wanted to stay a little bit more towards the cheese end and your charcuterie boards, a little spicy surprise you could try would be Japanese, not Japanese, jalapeno jack cheese. And that cheese, it sounds a little wild, but the heat and again, the green tea, they're a classic duo. You see that so many times. The cool, refreshing nature of the pear and the apple in the tea is going to be your fire extinguisher for those of you who don't want the super spice, but it will also pair it, and it's a nice back and forth flavor for you to enjoy. Now, one that really sounds like I need to get in the kitchen and have an extra hour or two to make because I really want to enjoy it would be like a cardamom and pistachio baklava. Or you can make it as a biscotti if you're not into baklava. But any treat using cardamom in the ingredient list is really going to make this a hit. The cardamom is the bridge spice. How do I sell? It smells kind of be slightly citrusy and floral, which is going to hit the delicate pear aroma and match with that. And it will really turn that simple cup of tea into something more of a Middle Eastern inspired dessert combination, which is a wonderful experience. But let's go even more unusual than that. And yes, I did try this myself earlier. I had been talking to some people about and looking at flavors and really looking at unusual flavors that contrast but that work together very, very well. And so I came up with this other one, then started researching it, and a lot of other people will actually do it too. Or back in that charcuterie board, but dill pickles. I know it sounds completely bizarre, but the acidity of the dill pickles makes the tea taste more like a sparkling pear cider. Um, so it's going to be unusual, and I want to know in the chat or the comments, even come back during the week. I would love for someone, and right now Diane's the only one drinking it, but I would love for someone to actually try it with me. I tried it earlier, and I was amazed at the flavor combination that I enjoyed. It really did bring some zip, but it wasn't overpowering from the dill and the vinegar base. So I know it's out there, but every once in a while, I really want to kind of expand your taste buds just a little bit to try something to really bring out the flavors. Okay, fun fact. We're in some fun and unusual fact segments here, but again, put your comments or questions in there. And actually, let's take a second. In the chat or the comments, go ahead and tell me, are you going to try any of the unusual pairings that I suggested? So if you are or you're not, you can just put a yes or no in the chat or comments. I'm interested to see if anybody's going to try any of them. It doesn't have to be the dill pickle. I know there's certain people out there that do not care for dill pickles. That's fine. But I gave you some of the other ones. Let me know in the chat or comments, are you going to try any of the unusual combinations with your Starlight Pear tea? Meanwhile, I'm going to take another sip. Okay. Oh no. I can't. Okay. The handy dandy assistant also has a joke. He has a dad joke, an official dad joke in the chat or the comments. Feel free to answer him as well. Let's see. Kim says, I'm more likely to try dill pickles and Starlight Pear than white cheddar popcorn with Winter's Kiss. Okay, fair, completely fair. I understand. Diane says the rosemary crackers with the cheese sounds good. Yes. It's funny that these things that you don't even think about, but then a lot of times I will try them myself, or if I can't, I've made sure that at least someone I personally know has tried the combinations before I talk about them on a Sunday. So there you go. There's a couple. Well, did you know then that pears used to be considered a fruit of royalty, that French nobles actually in the 1700s called it the gift of the gods? So who knew that? Stephanie's like, I love the white cheddar popcorn. So Stephanie will be completely happy drinking the white cheddar popcorn and the tea. So
there's a pear juggler.
For sure. There is that was in a movie, honey. I don't know that was. I don't think Genovia, last time I checked on the globe, Genovia is not a real place. So they didn't need the Genovian pear juggler. If you have girls who are probably young adults right now, you know exactly the movie series that I'm looking at. Okay. So I'm glad you knew that, Kim. That's always just a fun thing. So I wanted I got all thrown off with the Genovian pears because of my husband. I had to watch that movie probably a few too many times because of the girls.
Diane said rosemary crackers. Sounds good.
Yep, the shortbread cookies. See, there you go. All right, so the green tea naturally is going to enhance the flavor of any fruit containing apples and or malic acid, which is like apples and pears and things like that. It is one of the reasons why we put those two particular fruits together in this tea. And the thing is, I was talking about freeze drying the fruit earlier, and one of the other things that is very interesting is that freeze drying fruit actually makes it sweeter after it's been brewed in the tea. And this is because your taste buds register the flavor before the fruit completely rehydrates. It has enough of that flavor to come in so you taste more of it than really has been infused into the water. All right. All right. Lions and tigers and bears. Oh my gosh. Oh my goodness. Handy Dandy Assistant's going a little crazy with the dad jokes this week. I apologize in advance. I just can't. Okay. So another unusual fact, pear trees actually typically live for about 200 years. And so if you think about it, the really cool thing is that your tea ingredients that we're using in the tea, that tree could have been planted generations ago. 200 years is a really long time. You know, we could have pear trees that are still alive and producing fruit now that were planted back or started back 200 years ago. So that is a really interesting thing. Could have happened like during the Civil War. It could have happened not during the French and Indian Wars, or no, let's see, those were in the French and Indians became before the Revolutionary. So it would be after the Revolutionary War. So, you know, before the Louisiana Purchase in 1803. There you go. Diane said she received a small tin of Danish butter cookies for Christmas. They were my Lord. Yes, yes. My mom definitely enjoys those cookies. That was one of her favorite things to give as a Christmas gift for so many people. That is so funny. So, other questions? Does anybody else have any other questions that have to do with the Starlight Pear tea or pairings or questions? I wanted to give you all a chance to go. I kind of went through. I really have fun finding the traditional and even the unusual pairings because there's a difference. And I think Kim did it one time when we made a suggestion for one of the teas, and she was like, she tried it. And she's like, wow, it wasn't a combination that you would really anticipate would go together, but the flavors of the food really brought out the tea so much more. And that's one of those fun things that when you start to get into all those kinds of flavor combinations and everything like that. That is one of the reasons why I am excited. We just received the boxes and the tins, and we are going to start making up a couple of the boxes for our custom tea blending class that we will be having. We're looking at the end of November. Can you tell what month I'm in? We're looking at the end of February to the beginning of March, since we won't have anybody coming from the New England area to join us. We'll be doing it in person, but we can have an online segment as well. So
Kim said blueberry vanilla scones in the Sunlit Orchard. Highly recommend.
That's what it was. It was the blueberry vanilla scones and the Sunlit Orchard tea. Highly recommend. It's one of those things that you don't think of blueberry and an apple ginger going together. You don't think, you think blueberry, and a lot of people think lemon, or they think other. They really think a lot of lemon for the most part, although sometimes you can branch out to other citruses, but you don't necessarily think about blueberry and ginger. That was one of the things. I will also tell you that while I have been preparing for the custom tea blending class, you're going to get different ingredients, some of our ingredients, and we'll put the different ones, and I'll go through how we blend flavors and how you start with your base and know what to add and how to add it and everything like that. The other thing that I have been doing in preparing for something upcoming, I have found a recipe that I'm really looking forward, and it is a lemon zinger. It would be using our lemon zinger tea that I came across. And the jellied fruit slices, which if anybody knows, the watermelon ones are truly a weakness of mine. Santa Claus knew that and put some in my stocking this year, just a small little package of them. They did make it back to Kansas, but they only lasted about a week in Kansas before I had like literally having one a day, sometimes two. I'm not gonna lie, sometimes two. They still didn't make it very long, but there's a recipe to turn that you use a lot of the same ingredients other than including the green tea to make a little jellied fruit slice like that I'm really excited about trying as well. Let's see. Stephanie's looking forward to the tea blending class. I am super excited about it because we figured out what ingredients are going to be there. We will allow, if you need a special, for instance, you're caffeine free 100%, let me know, and I won't put any of the green teas or black teas in there. But we have really looked at a wide variety of, we use so many ingredients, you know, which ones are we going to include? Those are going to be in there. But as we've gone through, and I've kind of gone through the course itself, kind of putting together the back end, I've gotten really, really excited about that one. I just want to make sure I have enough time to get it right. But the boxes came in. Did they come in yesterday, honey? I'm pretty sure that they arrived yesterday. Yes, they arrived yesterday, and we were there. So in our home, Nona's has a lot of our downstairs, more than it's supposed to have. And no, we're not doing freeze-dried Brussels sprouts. But we have all the boxes and all the shipping and stuff down here too. And those boxes normally would come right downstairs. They didn't. We were already opening them and putting the boxes together. Look, this will be perfect. And then the tins I got came in for it. And so now we can go ahead and start to make up some of the boxes so that I can put out on social media a picture of what it would look like, so to speak. But let's see. Flatbread with a really strong flavor. Oh, okay. I don't know. But biscotti. And that's the thing. Don't think about just what you would normally place when you go with that blueberry that I was talking about, and then you have the apple and ginger green tea. It really brings in some flavor combinations. So you're kind of like, I don't understand, but it works. And that was what made me think, because people were talking about unusual fruit jelly slices. That's what made me think of it. And they're like, well, we could put green tea and lemon and ginger. And I was like, so lemon zinger tea? And kind of got me started because I like to do different things. Now, what could you use Starlight Pear in? One of the big ones that I would actually recommend that you might think is not the right time of year for is, this is a tea I would not hesitate to turn into an ice cream. I know it sounds unusual, but hear me out. I thought the same thing about Harmony. When we tried Harmony as a tea, and I think it's because in my brain, I do not put milk or dairy in any of my green teas. It's just in my head, they don't go together. Now, I know other people like them that way, and that's perfectly fine. But it took a lot, and we tried the recipe, and I was sold after we tried it. But the same thing is going to happen with this Starlight Pear, especially since pear ice cream, pear is such a delicate flavor. There's not really pear ice cream out there. I don't know that I've ever come in contact with anyone who's had any kind of pear ice cream, unless it's pear is one of the ingredients of many. But this is simple. You're going to take your Starlight Pear tea. You're going to do the exact same thing. You would put it in however much milk or cream you needed in your ice cream. You're going to heat it up to just below a simmer. You do not want that to boil. You really want to be kind of just below a simmer, especially with the delicate green tea. I would be leaving it in there and stirring it at that temperature for about a good 5 minutes. You could go 6 minutes longer because you're not going to be able to really reuse it. But if you're keeping the temperature down, it's not in there enough to get bitter. Then I'm going to pull the tea out. I will go put that, or I will put it in our bowl, which then gets brought out to be composted. But then you let that milk cool and then just use it in your ice cream as you normally would. And so that would be one of those things that you could turn this into an ice cream, and it would be a really nice, light, creamy texture and ice cream. So that would be something I would use this tea in. This is another one. If you wanted to, you could use it in scones. What I would probably do with that one is I would chop it up very finely because, as you saw earlier, the pieces are a little bit bigger. Not because I would be trying to chop up the fruit as much as just break down the tea leaves a little bit more since we leave them so big. And then just put it in scones or some shortbread cookies would be really, really good. Those would all work really, really well. That would be a way to bring in some more flavors and something else to do with the tea. I know you all like to know other things to do with tea other than just drink it, although, I mean, drinking it's always my preference. Okay. All right. So the answer to the question about what it was is a breakfast biscuit. It's a Stella d'Oro cookies. There you go. See, it clicked when I said biscotti. So don't be afraid to try it. Even in a biscotti, this would be a really good, nice. And if I didn't put the Starlight Pear in a biscotti, I would be dipping that biscotti in a dark chocolate. Can you tell what my preference is? A dark chocolate. And then while it was cool, I would probably do a little, to be honest with you, I would probably do just not even a pinch, but a tiny bit of not just salt, but like a rosemary salt to bring in kind of some herby notes in here, and have your biscotti dipped in that dark chocolate. Little tiny, and like not even a pinch, like you're nowhere near a pinch, but just a tiny bit of rosemary salt in there. So put the tea blend unbrewed in the scones. Yes, you can. I would probably double it up and do it both ways. I would brew some in the milk that I would use with my scones. Most scones in the recipes that we use that we've tried out, they're about a half cup of cream or milk. And I would still brew heavy. I would brew like a tablespoon to the half cup. That's a little bit more than we normally would, but and then I would probably take some that wasn't even brewed and put it in there. Now you could always take some that has been brewed and include it in there as well. There's nothing wrong with that. But I'm just trying to line up some extra flavoring in there. When you have a lighter, more delicate tea, you're going to need more to kind of overcome some of the other things that would be in there. But yes, I would put some of the tea blend in unbrewed into that scone recipe. Absolutely. All right. And I will tell you that I will not be doing the scones this week as a reel like we did last week, because then Rich and I have to eat all the scones. And that's not happening. I can't eat that many scones every week. Scones to me are once in a while kind of a thing. They're not an everyday. If you all know me, I can't eat that much sugar all the time. No, that's too much. And then we had we cooked for a group, and so there was a lot of baking for them with cinnamon rolls and cornbread and other things. So I was in the kitchen a lot, but All right, everybody. I don't see any questions. I keep looking down to see if there are any questions or comments. But if you have some, please feel free to put it in the middle of the week or whatever. Just go ahead and add it in.
Don't forget to vote.
Is that your base scone recipe for all the flavors? I would say I do have a traditional scone recipe that I adjust. And typically most of my scone recipes call for a half cup of milk. And so, yes, I would typically, when I do it, I would infuse it in there, and then I would add a little bit more. The other thing that you could do is, if you put icing on your scones, like I don't, because if I'm going to do clotted cream, or I'm going to do a jam or a jelly or something on that. And this would be amazing with like a pear jelly. I would take that scone with the Starlight Pear, and then I might do a little clotted cream, but I would be definitely doing a little bit of a pear jelly with that to bring out the flavor even more. There you go. So let's see. So yes, Stephanie, I do have a base recipe, and then I have a traditional scone, and then I have a base recipe for all my kind of fruit scones. Kim says, I know some people who would be willing to help you out on Saturday. I mean, this is true. I could, if I made them on Friday, if I was ahead of the game, I could make it on Friday and share. See, or Sunday. Sugar Creek has a wonderful spiced pear jelly. See, and that would be really great. I love that spiced pear jelly. I would put it on then. And again, if you didn't want to make the scone from scratch, if you were just buying a traditional scone, even a spiced pear jelly on the scone, enjoying this tea, you're going to get double the pear flavor. It's really going to bring it out in each other. But I would love the wonderful spiced pear jelly that she says. I would definitely put that even on a Starlight Pear scone. I don't put tea in all the scones. There's some combinations that I wouldn't necessarily do that with, and I think it's just a personal preference note. But there are other baked goods. You know, there are coffee cakes and there are spice cakes. I like spice cakes a lot for teas, because when you go to add it in, and this is another one I'm probably going to add it in the tea unbrewed, because they've already got so many other complementary flavors in there. So uh-oh, my handy dandy assistant raised his hand. How can I help you?
What tea would go best with the fruitcake people get at Christmas?
What tea would go best with the fruitcake tea that people have at Christmas? The fruitcake. I would say just a traditional black tea. You're gonna have enough other flavors if you're eating. Okay. You always have to ask the complicated questions, honey. If you're eating a traditional American fruit cake, you're going to have enough other flavors in there. I would go with like a morning Irish or a breakfast. And if you're having a more European style fruit cake, then I might go with like a serene sunrise or even an appealing or something else on that nature. There's a little bit different. What fruitcake has become in the States is a little bit different from what it is in European countries. So, all right. Well, next week, what we'll be doing is our question and answer. So feel free to get those questions to me in advance, and I will be happy to answer them. I also have a fun little thing extra that we'll be talking about next week. And supposedly there's some more snow coming in for some of our states. So if you are affected by that, please stay warm, stay careful, and we'll see you all next week, everybody.